Thank you so much, ladies. That was extremely illuminating. Ever wondered how some profiles on LinkedIn seem to have all the limelight, attracting opportunities and networks like magnets? Our next fireside chat on the topic, From Invisible to Influencer, Secrets to Shine on LinkedIn, uncovers the strategies that can turn you from a silent spectator to a leading voice in your industry of the world's biggest profession platform. You've met these two lovely folks before. They are wicked charismatic, awesome, and we love to hear their advice. Dave Mankin, founder of Nexus 6, and Danielle Erica, CEO and co-founder of True Workspace. Big round of applause for our next two speakers. You guys have mics? Okay.
Cool.
All right, you two, you got 45 good minutes. Whenever you're ready.
Well, thanks everyone. It's been a wonderful conference and sticking through hearing about LinkedIn. Excited to be here. I just wanted to get started with kind of some of the topics we wanted to go over to give you kind of a heads up. We wanted to talk about LinkedIn as the power of leveraging your network. So basically, how to use your network to grow your presence online, not just on LinkedIn, but in general. And then also, number two would be personal profiles and how your photo and your logo and updating your personal LinkedIn profile can really make you stand out from the crowd. Number three, message about how you can use LinkedIn as a CRM tool. It works with many CRMs and how you can leverage that. Number four, we wanted to kind of mention Sales Navigator as a great way to reach out to connections. Number five, email newsletters through LinkedIn, how they simplify the newsletter process. And number six, live events on LinkedIn. Seven, we can mention blogging. Number eight, positive AI, and everything is AI in 2024, so we can talk a little bit about that. And then number nine, I wanted to bring up LinkedIn's consistent look and feel as far as branding, and then 10, just end on video posts on LinkedIn. So why don't we get started first? I'll leave it over to Dave. How about we leverage social networks through the LinkedIn platform to increase our brand or our personal profiles?
Well, I think like any social media platform, the goal is to have a conversation, right? I think there's too many. If you kind of go on other sites, other social media platforms, it'll be people are like, I ate a salad,
Yeah.
or I went to the gym.
Yeah.
It's like, congratulations, I didn't. And so, right. But I think so. LinkedIn is really, kind of, the purpose is kind of right in the name. It's social. It's it's kind of starting a conversation with your network, and I think eh, really being able to connect with people from all different aspects, backgrounds, and just kind of really growing your audience and getting exposure to not just who you know, but who your network knows is really kind of invaluable.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Dave. I think to think of LinkedIn, think about it's like a global yellow pages meets resume meets social network. So it has some of the best components of like an Instagram or a Facebook, but it's much more focused on your professional persona. And it should be rooted in the reality of your resume and your reality of your business. But it should also help you understand how other people that are leaders in your industry how they're connecting, what kind of content they're creating. LinkedIn company pages is an amazing way to grow your brand. If your company does not have a LinkedIn company page that's updating, I would say weekly for most brands. I've seen some major brands updated every 2 or 3 days, two or three times a week. I would recommend at least once a week, and definitely once a month. You should be posting on the LinkedIn company page for your company or your client's company because it's inexpensive, virtually free. You can boost the post, but also it really helps leverage who you know directly. So let's say you have 500 friends or 1,000 friends, or some influencers may have 15, 20,000 people following them, but then all the people that they know. So I know when I was at UCLA, they talked about the power of sociology. And really what it is that I know Dave, I'm getting to know him. I may know someone else in the audience, but that person in the audience might know five other people. And I need to know the person in the audience. I might tangentially know them, but then by the power of social networks such as LinkedIn, I immediately can reach out to them saying, "Hey, can you introduce me to, the five doctors in your neighborhood that might want my product, or the five CPAs in your neighborhood that might need my services." So to think of LinkedIn as your digital platform for growing and expanding your network is really essential and key. Okay, I guess we can go on to personal profiles and sales and leveraging a logo and a great profile picture. Yeah, you can go.
I think having a up-to-date picture is always a good thing. It's always when people have one from like taken in the 80s. It's always not that I feel like people are trying to catfish me on LinkedIn, but sometimes it feels like that. Um, I'd shy away from being too salesy in your little tagline, because anytime I get like an invite from somebody that's like, I can help you get 40 sales leads a week, like I just you kind of ignore them, right? Because if that's
Too
the
salesy.
first part of the
Yeah.
conversation is I'm gonna do this for you, and because then it's like if you hit accept, the next thing is your DM is bloop, let's schedule a meeting. So again, be more personable, be yourself. And again, it kind of comes back to the last conversation about living your brand, right? So kind of know your voice, know your style, and just make sure that that's consistent through everything, including your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Dave. I think to think of your communication on LinkedIn, like any social media platform, is that it's pretty much, in stone. So if you write something irreverent and funny, take in consideration that this is more of a professional facing, maybe you would put something more funny or a meme on Twitter or on Instagram or Facebook, but I would say for LinkedIn, keep it more professional. Keep it. HR recruiters are using it to hire you, or for to you might be leveraging HR companies to hire within your own company. So I would say keep it professional, a nice looking picture that's clear, well lit, and then also a tagline. I think taglines, what he's saying too is don't be so aggressive. Like it can be, your one liner, sales generation expert who's written, a best-selling book or something more compelling than that, but you get the point. But if you're just like, meet me and I'll make you $1 million in ARR in 10 days, it's like it can be kind of aggressive, and too salesy does not work on LinkedIn. I've been on a lot of calls and been through a lot of marketing events and things like this where we've talked about LinkedIn, and I think the leverage, the power of it is to be authentic. I think through this whole conference we've been talking about branding and brand building, and we're in 2024. People have been doing digital marketing for over 20 years. People can read, inauthentic, brands a mile away. So you want your profile to reflect your honest abilities, your honest persona, and also approachable. Right? You don't want to seem so unapproachable that no one wants to reach out to you if they're a friend of a friend. So that's something to highlight. So let's move on to maybe using LinkedIn as a um, CRM tool. So if you know that many CRMs like HubSpot or Salesforce, they all have Zoho, they all have plugins with LinkedIn. And so LinkedIn Sales Navigator, using the LinkedIn tool through your CRM is an excellent way to populate your database with amazing information. I know with one the company I was working with, we used Apollo.io and Salesforce, and we had the most amazing results because we would basically have their contact information, their name, their address, their phone number, their email. But then with LinkedIn, we could see all of their connections, how long they've been at the company, all these just rich details that made the conversation so much more. I would say targeted and more useful, right? Like if I come to you and I say, hey, I know you've been doing medical sales for 15 years and you worked at the company that my other sales manager worked at for 2 years, maybe we should meet next week. That's a very compelling statement versus, hey, I can save you $200,000 tomorrow and with no proof that it could happen, right? So I think with using the Sales Navigator plugins for CRM, it's a very, very useful, time saving, and can create really rich conversations because you find points where you can come together, that you have common interests.
I agree. I also am awful with names.
Okay, yeah.
So I always use it before walking to a meeting. I'm like, who is this person? And then I just look them up because if I'm usually connected with them. And again, that's why it's beneficial to have an up to date picture because then I'll actually know who it is. So
Yeah, and I think researching someone before you go into a meeting. I know I was at one company and they said, "Oh, don't do that. You should just be authentic and just let the person tell about themselves." But then we actually did an A/B test where we took I think about 5 meetings where we didn't do the LinkedIn more than like 4 or 5 minutes of LinkedIn research, and then we did about 4 or 5 meetings where we did like a half an hour LinkedIn research, basically looking up the companies they worked for, looking up the schools, seeing if we knew anybody that went to those schools, and all these kinds of things. And the meetings where we did the research went way better. And the reason why is because people felt like we took time and energy to care about them, to care about their story, to care about their employment history, to care about their lives. Oh, we saw that you lived in, Alabama, but then you moved to Florida. We have an office in Florida. Are you interested in meeting in the office in Florida? Because we know you're in Boston right now. I mean, there's so much details that you can do to make the conversations in sales or partnerships or even in employment, hiring or opportunities for yourself. It makes a more rich conversation. And thinking in 2024 and beyond, really being able to have meaningful conversations is really the I would say one of the benefits of being in a digital era. Years ago, you might have to, before Facebook went digital, they used to have paper books with all your history or who's who of American people in paper books. But they were, I mean, this is so long ago, but they did have that. But now, in the 21st century, I know they did have that, right? I know, and anyone in here, I know it's a funny point because it's like we're so post 2000 we forget that, but we should take advantage of these digital tools and make the conversations as poignant, as meaningful, and also you'll have a higher ROI on your sales calls because people feel like you authentically care about them and you can understand their needs better. So let's move on. Um, how about newsletters through LinkedIn? Do you have experience doing newsletters through LinkedIn, Dave?
um, yeah, I think it's again like any tool though is knowing your audience first. I wouldn't say that every company or client that I have should have a LinkedIn newsletter. It's kind of understanding where your target market is, and then again, it's really if you are going to do a newsletter, and kind of back to the point from the last one is how many newsletters do you really want, right? So it's if you're going to do it, make sure that there's an actual value
Hmm.
to it. That again, people are selfish. They want to. What's in it for me, right? And if you can't really spell out what's in it for me, people aren't going to read it. Um, But yeah, so yes, it's great. It's a fantastic tool. It's a great way to kind of expand the message beyond just a written post. So I've used it for a lot of more of the um, business orient, like a B2B client is fantastic. And if you know a B2B, if you're and then but making sure that a you're inviting the right types of people to join it. There's no sense in inviting 1,000 people to read your LinkedIn newsletter if 1,000 of them work at McDonald's, right? You're like, oh, I've got 1,000 subscribers. Cool, but who's actually getting any benefit out of it?
Yeah, I think the point of it would probably be better, and I have read research to this, and I've also experienced in my own career, is that it's probably better to have 500 subscribers that really read your newsletter once a month, that actually take actionable, where they're going to say, oh yes, message me in 3 months, or I might buy it in a year. You know, the point of a newsletter is to be a touch point for branding. But if you're putting out fluff once a week and everyone unsubscribes, then it wasn't a useful use of your time or your customer's time, and it could repel potential customers. So it needs to be poignant, it needs to be adding value. I think the idea, I think someone mentioned, like, do we want anybody want another newsletter? I think it depends on your market, right? If it's a very research heavy, education focused sale, right? Like you're selling, $20,000 a year software, or you're selling medical devices, or you're doing AI research. Those kind of topics, they might need a weekly or monthly newsletter to show all the updates, and they won't find that in the major media. If you're doing B2C, LinkedIn might not be the best use of your time. It is more B2B focused, and if all the people subscribing to your newsletter probably won't purchase your product, then you might want to focus on leads other places. But I would say right now, last time I checked, LinkedIn has over 1 billion subscribers, and a huge amount of professionals are on LinkedIn. Depending on their vertical, certain professions are not as active, so you need to keep that in mind. But with LinkedIn Navigator, you can figure out who your target market is. Let's say you're in Tampa, Florida, and you're trying to connect with CPAs. You can go through LinkedIn Navigator and find out how many CPAs are in Tampa, Florida, and then you can see who you're connected to and who your friends are connected to, and you can say secondary connections. I'd like to do a campaign targeting those people, and then it doesn't need to be robotic, where you just say, hey, can I like your profile? Can we connect? Can we meet next week? Those are not compelling. I think Dave's seen those too, where you get a lot of inbound LinkedIn's that are very stale and very, written by a bot. That's not going to go anywhere in 2024. I think maybe 5 years ago, when people didn't have as many LinkedIn connections, but now make it authentic. You can, customize the text. There's a couple of different CRM tools that help you customize the text based on people's profiles, or just take time, have a marketing assistant, reach out through Sales Navigator with, more specific messages saying, hey, we're opening an office in Miami. We know you're in Tampa. Would you like to meet in our new Miami office? Those kinds of things make the conversation more impactful, right? I mean, that's what we want. We want return on investment. We want great marketing. We want great branding. And that's in 2024 is all about being authentic. So let's move on to, you want to talk about AI and content generation? That might be a good topic.
I use AI all the time. Um, mainly, I'm really lazy, and
At
so
least it's honest.
like the concept of like writing a LinkedIn post is just like, ugh, I don't want to do that, right? But if I'm riding up the escalator and I'm like, I kind of know what I want to talk about, and if I can just feed it to the program and say, these are the highlights I want to talk about, write me something compelling. I use, so I don't know if anybody uses this, but I use Copilot. I know there's been a lot of chat about ChatGPT. So Microsoft spent, I was like over $2 billion,
Yeah.
and they bought like 40% of OpenAI. So Microsoft is really plugging OpenAI. So OpenAI is the parent company of ChatGPT, Dolly, which is the image creator. And if you haven't seen it yet, you should go check it out. They've integrated um, their AI with Unreal Engine 5. And so Unreal Engine 5 is usually, or the Unreal Engine was largely in video games. So it would actually, video games, physics, lighting, all these type of things. They've got to the point with Unreal Engine 5 that it looks real, right? It's creepy because you can't tell. Now it's a video game. Disney has been using it. So if you've seen The Mandalorian, they have this big curved screen behind the set. And so rather than having a green screen where the actors will be like, oh, I'm going to pretend that I'm on this planet, they'll actually use the Unreal Engine to actually generate the imagery behind them. So but it's actually tracked with the cameras. So as the camera moves, the screens in the back move. And so it you give the feeling you're there. Now, OpenAI has actually now integrated this into the chat feature. So now it's not just imagery, you can tell it what you want to see, and it will generate video based in AI using the Unreal Engine 5. So, um, kind of coming back to it, I use Copilot from Microsoft. The reason I do that is because they own a good chunk of OpenAI, you get ChatGPT 4 for free. Whereas with ChatGPT, if you go straight through them, it's like $20 a month, or the free version is 3.5. The difference between 3.5 and 4 is 3.5 kind of tapped out on its knowledge base in like 21, whereas
For it's
4
interactive.
actually is
A lot more.
connected to the internet.
Yeah, it's
So
much
if you
more
go to
accurate.
Copilot and you flick on the little button that says ChatGPT 4, you can choose from creative, balanced, and then more precise. I always go, so what I'll do is I'll say, because branding for me always has a Sasquatch. And so there's not a lot of stock photos of Sasquatches doing the things that I want them to, right? So you can look at my LinkedIn feed. I've got a Sasquatch sitting on like a overpass in Vegas. Um, so you'll go and I'll say, I'm in Vegas, blah blah blah. So I want to see this. Comes out with a picture. It's awesome. There's a couple of tweaks you have to do. Then you take that and you're like, okay, this is the story behind the picture. So these are the highlights. This is what I want to talk about. I'm too lazy to do it, so just give me something. And usually with a couple of tweaks, you can get it done. But the Copilot has an app for your phone. So if I'm cruising somewhere, I'm riding the escalator, I'll knock out like a post, this really long, kind of well thought out post and the graphic with a Sasquatch. Everybody's, oh man, wow, they think it's great. And I'm like, whatever. I was on an elevator and I was just killing time. But again, it's to propel the conversation, and I think AI is great, but having the concept and the content strategy behind it, it's only as good as what you feed it.
Yeah, it's garbage in, it's garbage out, I think. Someone know says that. I think it's really important to think about, generative AI and the next generation of AI. It's really a helpful tool. So I think, especially if you're an agency or you're a mid-sized marketing department, have your marketing assistant just become an expert and then review their posts, because maybe before you might have to have a senior copywriter, you might have to have a graphic designer, you might have to have reviewed by 3 or 4 different people. But you'd be surprised with AI tools. And I also like Jasper.ai. I think someone else mentioned that. That's a great tool. I had some really good experience with that. I think we did write one post and someone said, did AI write this? Because this seems a little sterile and insincere. And I was like, oh, shoot. I didn't catch that. It seemed more research because for a medical company. So I thought it seemed more academic. But so you need to make sure that your audience also reads it, because the chat GPT or the Jasper.ai, we're still in the first generations of it. So it's not perfect. But it also can give you some great ideas. I think when I was using some of the tools, I was like, wow, I didn't really think of it from that perspective. So you don't necessarily have to use a copy that the AI generates or even the image that the AI generates. Sometimes it'll generate, like you said, a Sasquatch, reading a newspaper in Vegas, and you might have thought, Sasquatch going shopping in Vegas. So it's always something to use for your own brand voice, to augment your marketing efforts, and to make your life easier and more, I would say, more productive. I mean, we're living in the 21st century, and the tools that are available to us were just dreams, 50 years ago. So we should be proactive and use them to our best of our abilities. And you'd be surprised. It can cut time to market and time to creating these kind of posts and make them more compelling. I think that's really the goal, is to make content as compelling as possible. ChatGPT, scurrying the whole internet and coming up with every idea under the sun, it's pretty much impossible for a human being to do that kind of work. I'm not. We're not there yet where AI is smarter than humans, and hopefully that's not something that is a big issue for us. But I think to use it to, in the case of posting and social media like LinkedIn, it's a great tool. Let's move on to branding and consistent look and feel around social media posting, especially how it relates to LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think uh, uh, even regardless of how big your brand is, if you do something that's kind of slightly inconsistent with what people have come to expect from it, people get really upset, right?
Yeah.
Like new Coke. Like, what are you doing with new Coke, man? Why is this new? I was okay with the last Coke, right? And it's just, and so they had to backtrack on that, right? And we talked about, kind of earlier on with like Bud Light. Know your audience, man.
That's terrible.
Know your audience. I mean, I'm not trying to be a dick, but it's like, if you're drinking Bud Light, you're probably not like a social justice warrior, right? I mean, um, right, and it's just like, okay, cool. So like, let's have some brand consistencies. Let's understand who you really are and who you're looking to actually, speak to, and keeping it consistent because, people do not like change. They say they do. They say, "Oh, I'd love a change," but presented with too much or too many options, they kind of they kind of stiffen up and they can't make a decision. And so if they've come to expect something from a brand and that's what they want, keep it the same. And I know it sounds boring, but it's alienate a big portion. I mean, Batman Returns, not 89. This is
There you
89.
go. There you go.
Batman Returns. Um, so McDonald's had a huge fallout because they were they started putting Batman Returns things in their Happy Meals, right? And then people went and saw the movie and they're like, oh, he pushed a woman out the window. Oh, that guy bit somebody's guy's nose. And like, this isn't family friendly. And so there was such a brand disconnect between the messaging that McDonald's was saying, like, go take your kids here. And then they're like, no, don't take your kids here. And so it's, again, it's being consistent between on all platforms because if you have different messaging on LinkedIn and then they get to your website and it's a different look and feel, people are going to be confused and they're going to be like, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I think, something to think about with any kind of social media platform, but especially one as professional and as B2B focused as LinkedIn, is that you want to keep your iconography consistent. I know I've done it where I've had to change my font, and I had a few people email me saying, I don't know what is up with this new font that you're using. It looks terrible. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. We're like not that big of a company, but I have heard major companies have fonts created for their logo and their use for social media, postings and all their. So I think about the font text, think about the colors. I mean, this is kind of branding 101, but you'd be surprised when you're hiring out freelancers or you're hiring people for your department. You really have to train them to use the right color schemes, the right fonts, the right looks. Have your taglines, have everything, and then if you change it universally, right? You need to change it on Instagram. You need to change it on Facebook. You need to change it on Twitter. And then you need to change it on LinkedIn and your website, right? So, and your PDFs and all your marketing collateral. So, I think think about, I think someone mentioned a brand audit. If you do something new, you should do it universally. And LinkedIn is probably one where you're going to get caught. Like people will say, "Hey, what happened? This is like your colors were yellow and green and purple, and now it's purple, blue, and yellow." And so yeah, yeah. So you have to think about, creating the brand that you want to stick with, that you like, that represents your products, your what you're trying to convey with your look and feel, and just make sure that your posts are consistent. And you'd be surprised. I sometimes felt like posting similar type of images. I thought this is kind of boring, but I would tell you sometimes the seventh or eighth post that looked similar, the page views went skyrocketing. It was incredible. Some people really like. I think there was a study that said people have to see a topic of information 3 times before it actually imprints to their memory. So you have to think about, if you're posting on LinkedIn with, a similar type of graphic, let's say, it's a sales, we're going to have a big Super Bowl party or something like that, launch it after the Super Bowl. You do 3 ads with the same look and feel. By the fourth one, you're probably going to get a lot more impressions, because people will finally stop and read what the post says. So that's something to think about with the look and feel of your posts on LinkedIn, to keep it consistent, keep the fonts consistent, and keep it compelling with your overall brand messaging. Um, I wanted to speak a little bit about video marketing and how that might relate to LinkedIn.
Yeah. So that's tricky because video marketing done well can be very impactful, but doing it poorly is more of a negative impact on kind of the business, right? So if you because I we worked with a lighting company out of Manhattan, and they were doing a bunch of the like LED lights and all this really smart stuff. And I said, they were talking about how they were gonna kind of brand, and I said, the one thing about lighting is nobody notices if it's good lighting, right? Like you just expect things to be well lit. If you walk into a room and it's well lit, you're like, you don't notice it, but you will notice if you enter a room and it's kind of, you know,
Poorly lit.
right, and it's poorly lit and there's shadows and you're like, ah. So again, with video, right, is if you take video and it's poorly lit, and even the sound quality, if
Yeah.
there's an echo, you will notice, like, not to pick on chiropractors, but I will. I've seen like so many chiropractors, they'll just stand in their office and be like, hey, and there's an echo, and like they're lit from the side, and they're casting a shadow, and it's cheap, and it comes across that. And I think everyone is just so used to high production values of videos. Like Mr. Beast, I think spends $1 million an episode to produce it, right? Like I wish that was my problem, right? But $1 million to produce that, and it's so. I would say do it if you can do it well, but just like you wouldn't put out a poorly designed piece, like a poorly designed marketing slick, right?
PDF, yeah.
Yeah, so why would you go ahead and put out a poorly executed video, because it's more of a negative impact on your business?
Yeah, I think quality video content, I mean, obviously, YouTubers, there's great YouTube content. And I would say some of the better LinkedIn content that's more actionable is, insightful. Maybe it's a story. In the case of a chiropractor, if they hire an agency or a small video production company, or even today with a nice iPhone and someone that has some video production experience, you can do amazing work. So I think just be cognizant of the production quality. I lived in Los Angeles for a long time, and I knew a lot of people in the film and entertainment industry, and they were saying that really social media, mostly focused on Instagram, but you can do similar type of marketing on LinkedIn and create amazing videos. I don't like the term viral videos because I think it's overused, and virality by nature is not that positive. So, but it's like one of those not, oxymorons. Like we want things to go viral, but we really don't want a virus. But anyway, the point is that a video that hits critical mass or gets a lot of views is usually something that is well lit. It has an interesting message. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's ironic, sometimes it has a great quote. I've seen a lot of messages on LinkedIn that are more just like positivity, or motivational speakers talking about a specific topic. And so just think about, when you're doing your LinkedIn marketing strategy, think about, static images, think about blog posts, think about newsletters, but also incorporate possible video marketing strategies, and how you can create compelling video content. Because I'm with True Workspace, and we are a video messaging platform. It's very, and so I'm bullish about the future of the internet being video first. So I think LinkedIn has done a great job and with that, and so to keep that in mind with your, bless you, with your video marketing strategy. And then I wanted to maybe touch on LinkedIn Learning. Do you want to talk about that at all? Have you experimented with that?
I've learned everything there is to know. No, I think it's again, I think it's an invaluable tool to. We've had employees come through the agency that where there's just a ton of different kind of learning material to access through LinkedIn Learning for sure.
Yeah, to highlight what LinkedIn Learning, which you have to. I was looking on the phone. At least the app I have on the phone didn't have it on there, but I think it does have a special its own app now where you can download on the mobile phone LinkedIn Learning app. But within, especially the desktop version of LinkedIn, you can take classes, and this is amazing. They acquired Lynda.com years ago. I actually met some of the people that were part of the team of LinkedIn years ago, and it was such an innovative idea. So the fact that, and they were going to charge like $100 a month, or $300 a month, and it's nominal amount, and you can learn so much. I mean, I had some junior social media people working with me, and they spent like 2 or 3 weeks going through 4 or 5 classes on LinkedIn. And the next thing I know, they're like, "Oh, this is how we do this. This is how we do this." I was like, "Oh, was that from your LinkedIn learning class? Okay, great." So it's a great way to learn different tools and skill sets. And then now on your LinkedIn profile, you can add that you have a certificate in a certain LinkedIn class. So that's a great way if you're looking to grow your resume or grow your profile. Say, hey, I took the LinkedIn learning class on databases, or LinkedIn learning class on HR recruiting. And actually, I have hired people with some LinkedIn skill sets. And when I interviewed them, I was actually very pleasantly surprised at how well they said that their LinkedIn classes helped them with their career. So those were the main points I wanted to go through. Do you want to leave it open for questions, or you have more?
Yeah, I guess the only one I was going to say is that the kind of the title influencer, I think kind of sometimes suggests that you have a huge audience. Like we always think, oh, these influencers, um, which I don't think is necessarily true. I think if to be truly an influencer, it's you impact people in a positive way on kind of what you're talking about. You don't have to have a massive audience because I mean, if you look at any of these, quote unquote influencers online, just from the nature of the internet, there's 50% of the people that are saying, "Oh, you're so beautiful. Oh my God, I love you." And then there's the other ones that are just tearing them down. So it's just like, if that's the cost of being an influencer, is like, or just have a huge following, or have a smaller following that have a bunch of people that actually look up to you and so, look at you as a thought leader.
Yeah,
I'd go for
I love
I'd
that.
go for 10 people that I could, actually impact their life with some insights than I would have 100,000, people that I didn't know or didn't, just kind of
Weren't your
this
audience.
kind of faux interest.
I think it's a great thing to think about is when you're acquiring your followers or you're looking to grow your audience, make sure that you're getting an audience that really you can make an impact on, and they're positive people that aren't just trolling you. I know it sounds kind of maybe odd or cruel, but really, Twitter and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is actually better, I think, than Instagram and Twitter. People are more professional, and I actually do know people that have gotten their profiles kicked off of LinkedIn because they DM'd people, they trolled people, and I actually have, I think once or twice, I emailed LinkedIn and said this person's comment was very rude, and then they emailed me and they said, okay, their profile will not show as I think available, like limit how many people they can connect with a month or something. So they do have policies in place to make sure the trolling's less. And then just think about, if you're posting positive, amazing content about your brand, about your product, about your services, you're going to get amazing people, and if you spend time, targeting them through the LinkedIn app, that's a great way. You can buy ads to target people that you're looking to grow your audience, and you'll get the right people. So, keep a positive, attitude, be thoughtful, if you have a lot of, you know, content that I would say is more um, like too salesy or inauthentic. You might get some people that are kind of, not helpful, trying to sell you something. You think that they're trying to buy your product, but then they're trying to sell you a product. It's very odd. So, like anything else in the world, it's only as good as you, put guardrails around it. So, but I think in general, LinkedIn's a very positive place, and you can really grow an amazing audience. I know one guy who went from I think maybe like 1,500 followers on LinkedIn, and then he paid an agency to grow his audience around a specific topic within software because he wanted to be an expert and speak at conferences and things like that. And within 12 months, he got over 100,000 quality followers, and then many of them became customers. So it's a great way to think about educating your audience should be so that they know you more. I do like Grant Cardone, and he's famous for saying, your biggest problem with your business is nobody knows who the heck you are. And I think that's a great way of thinking about branding and, your own influence is that, if people like your brand and resonate with the content that they see, then, 3 months later, 6 months later, maybe it's 2 years later, they say, oh, yeah, I've been reading his newsletter for years. I think the first person I'm going to call is Dave, or first, I need a B2B software. I'm going to call Danielle at True Workspace. And those are the kind of best customers to have. Those long-term customers that value your product, trust you, and believe that your product is useful and helpful, and overall going to positively impact their lives. So, I guess we have time for questions or any more. I don't think so. Maybe it's are you using a tool that's not letting you publish on LinkedIn? Yeah. Oh, is it Vidyard? ScreenYard. I'm not familiar with ScreenYard. I'm familiar with Vidyard, Vidyard. Yeah, just research that. You can on YouTube. There's a lot of how-to videos about how to post on LinkedIn. So I wouldn't worry about that. I think in general, I've seen people with 500 followers and they post a story about they went traveled here and they have video content or things like that. So I wouldn't worry about that. Any more questions? Yeah. Exactly. That is honestly, that is one of the most difficult questions that I have around LinkedIn is are all the people that you're connected to people that you know and you could recommend, right? And I know that got I have had a lot of inbound requests to follow me on LinkedIn or to connect with me on LinkedIn. But now they do have the feature where they can just follow you and get your content, but you're not necessarily connected. So that might be something where you can say, hey, my audience is getting too large. I have, 3,000 people I'm connected with, and I'm trying to, slim down my audience. Please go ahead and use this link to follow me, and you can keep up with my content. I have seen some people do that. I heard that they've done that successfully. So it's something to think about. It depends on how your sales cycle is. If you want to cast a wide net, then I wouldn't delete them. But if you're selling, very specific product, education software for university professors, and you have all these people that aren't related, you might want to think about deleting them. The only thing with deleting them is that if they do remember you, and then 2 or 3 years later that you think you have to make sure you back it up on an Excel chart or something like that with their name and their information, because you might not you might need that contact. So, but you can export all your contacts on LinkedIn. Yeah, she's saying don't do it. So I know people that have, though. Yeah, I know people that have deleted contacts. Yeah, I think it's a personal choice. It depends on who you're connecting with, why you're connecting with them. If yeah, if you back it up on Excel, you'd be surprised. Many of the people that you can send them a connect request again, and they'll connect with you, especially if you say, hey, we were connected a long time ago. I was working at this company. Now I want to connect with you again. So, it's not set in stone. It's just a social network. I know people have done that with, 5,000 people followers on or friends on Facebook, and they've been fine. So, just think about it. As far as your purpose and how wide a net you want to cast. So, any more questions?
Mike, were you just asking that question because you want to delete my contacts? Uh, I'm gonna look at my LinkedIn to see if we're still connected.
Delete, right? That's a social media problem. Yeah.
Any last thoughts from our panel?
On your profile, I think some of the things we talked about is, make sure your professional profile includes, a great picture, a logo of your company or a brand. What kind of work do you do? Your writer, yeah. So you might want to do a tagline about writing. You want to make sure that you could put author as part of your story. You can say, author wrote this book, and put a link to the book on Amazon. You could say the papers that you published. So, there's a lot of great content around how to specifically optimize your LinkedIn profile. But I think the basics are, make sure that your profile looks good, your header looks great, and that you fill out your profile completely with links to some of your other content. That's helpful.
I would just say, just make sure you're putting out compelling content that people want to interact with, like, share, um, rather than don't post for the sake of posting. Yeah, like it just, and again, I think it comes back to nobody cares about you personally. I'm sorry to say. Um, but telling them an engaging story, right? Don't tell them about, you know, oh, it was Monday and it was a real struggle, right? Like, cool.
Yeah,
It was Monday for all of us, dude.
with
Like, but like, tell a compelling story, right? Why am I giving you my time to read? and it's not to sound condescending. It's just remember, like
There's thousands of profiles.
right, and there's so much static out there. What's going to kind of break through, right? And that's the key, is to, in this world of just, I think what was some of it was like in the 80s you were exposed to like branding like 500 times a day, right? And now it's 2024, and I think it's like closer to 10,000 times a day.
10,000, yeah, I heard that too.
So it's just like, okay, cool. So now knowing that, what's going to add something to somebody else's day, right? What can you bring that will add something that'll kind of cut through the clutter?
I would say in the case of writing, put a piece of content that you created, a link to a PDF, a link to a book, a link to your website with some blog posts. I mean, I know when I get resumes and they say, I'm a great graphic designer and they don't have a portfolio, I'm like, well, you should probably have a good portfolio if you're a great graphic designer. And if you're a good writer, have some great writing content and around that. And if you're a salesperson, highlight, the sales targets that you were able to hit your marks and go even better. So something to think about is that with your LinkedIn, the way you can shine is to be unique and create a profile that shows your unique, compelling skill set and make it authentic. And I love that you can put URLs and links to other content, so you don't have to keep it all on LinkedIn. And you'd be surprised, a lot of people will click out to your company page, to your website, and to your YouTube content, and it can be helpful. So, keep optimistic, and I'm sure your skills will shine.
Thank you so much, panel. You guys are awesome as always. All right, guys, we did it. That's it. 3 days of convention now officially over. They had something or else other planned, but they're not going through with it because most of the people have gone home for the day. So I'm just told to tell you, don't forget that we're coming back here in Vegas in March next year, and they'll be in Dubai later on this year. You can see reception at the front. My friend Shabet will take care of you as far as that goes. Everybody, wherever you live, wherever you have to get back to, please do it safely. Don't drink and drive. Take a lift. And gambling is a waste of money. My name is Sean Paul Johnson. I'm an entertainer for hire. Thank you for letting me do this for you today. Thank you so much. Woo! You guys are awesome. Thank you. Y'all be safe tonight.